Uh, I don't know what page we're on because I've got an electronic copy here, but we are on, boy, we're well into this chapter. Oh, there we go. We're on the date Wednesday, September 26th, 1883, and we're quite a bit past it on the paragraph that begins, the evening worship in the temples was over.
Mommy, if somebody has a page number, maybe they could put it in the chat.
Okay. Anybody knowing the hardcover, the hard book page number can put it in the chat for us. All right. And so Ramakrishna has just been in a spiritual state, an ecstatic state, and he was praying to the mother, please do not delude me with your world bewitching Maya. I seek your protection. I have taken refuge in you, which is really the best prayer for all of us. All right, page 299, according to Sarah. Page 299. So this prayer, in dealing with our relationship with this moment, since that's what we were talking about as we kind of moved into this book tonight, our relationship with the moment being the equivalent of our relationship with God, since this moment is a name of God, the I am, the isness. And so the best way for silencing the past, silencing the stories of ego, silencing the conditioning of mind is this prayer right here. I don't want to be deluded by anything. And I want to take your protection, and I take refuge in you. And so in this moment, take refuge in this moment, find your peace in this moment, find your stillness in this moment, find your contentment in this moment. And that is to take refuge in God. That is to see things as they are. That in this moment, you become aware that you've never been born and you will never die, because you inhabit and have always inhabited a moment that has no beginning and no end. A moment that has always been outside of time, although we don't normally see it because we're always bouncing back and forth between past and future in our mind, and almost never being in the moment. Being in the moment is silence of mind, right? Being in the moment is silence of mind, because by the time you have a thought, observe it, and calculate that observance, that's not present. You left the present quite some time back, actually, in that whole process. So to be in the moment is to be free of thought, right? To be fully aware, to have that awareness, seeing everything at once, and not calculating, not defining. And in that state, the sages say, then you then have access to an infinite wisdom that comes to you spontaneously. It doesn't need to be referenced. It doesn't work it doesn't work through cause and effect. It's present in you always. And there's this knowledge in you, this wisdom, this Sat and Chit and Ananda, which are always part of the present moment, that bliss, that wisdom, and that unconditioned love without boundary. And they are in their noun form in the moment, because the moment has no movement, no change, right? The moment is always exactly what it is. So the evening worship in the temples was over, and Sri Ramakrishna was again seated in his room with M. M had been visiting the master for the past 2 years and had received his grace and blessings. He had been told that God was both with form and without form, that he assumed forms for the sake of his devotees. To the worshiper of the formless God, the master said, hold to your conviction, but remember that all is possible with God. He has form, and again, he is formless. He can be many things more. So even beyond that, form and formless, there's not just two options for God in anything. God can basically take any condition that he wants to take, or she wants to take, or that wants to take. And this is a wonderful way to have a healthy respect and a healthy love for others. is to understand, that none of us has the monopoly on truth. Probably none of us has a monopoly on truth. And so to allow God to do his teaching, to allow the divine to teach, to not always let our ego kick in and determine the teaching, right? Because the ego is always about boundaries, always about inclusion or exclusion. That's what it's about. And so religion with egoism in it is always trying to judge, trying to sort out, who knows and who doesn't know, who's right and who's wrong. And oddly enough, every single person doing that is assuming that they are the one that's right, which is the biggest irony of it all. And so Thakur here is giving us a great example of how it is. Hold to your truth. That which you think is right, hold to that. Be true to it, But that doesn't mean that everybody else is wrong. That simply means that's your relationship with the divine, your knowledge of God, your experience of God. And the reason for that is that every single one of us can know that our relationship with the divine, our knowledge of God, our experience of spiritual life has radically changed in the years that we've been alive. If it was as cut and dry as people like to present it as, that kind of change would not be possible. That kind of transformation within ourselves could not be possible, because it's our transformation that allows us to see God differently as we grow and become, we see the evidence of grace. We see the evidence of love. We see the evidence of mercy and compassion in our experience of the divine. And so we are transformed because of that. We are healed because of that. We're able to let go of things that caused us mental anxiety, mental anguish. And we're able to learn of the nature of the silent moment, that silent moment is pregnant with an unconditioned love, that silent moment is pregnant with grace, with wisdom, and that it is all yours in the presence, in being. So to the worshiper of the formless God, the Master said, hold to your conviction, but remember that all is possible with God. He has form, and again, he is formless. He can be many things more. The Master to M. You have accepted an ideal, that of God without form. Isn't that so? M. Yes, sir. But I also believe what you say, that all is possible with God. It is quite possible for God to have forms. Master. Good. Remember further that as consciousness, he pervades the entire universe, the living and the non-living. Now, it's interesting. Why would he take him to that next step? You see, the first step is like, okay, does God have form or is God without form? Can I worship God in an image, or does it have to be no image? And of course, that argument has been going on as long as there's been religion. And so he's saying, you know what? Hold on to whatever conviction you have and work with that and stick with it and know that God is bigger than any of that. But then he says, but after having chosen your conviction, which one you're going to stick with, go farther. Know that as consciousness, as awareness of the world, that he pervades the entire universe, the living and the non-living. So what he's doing is he's saying, graduate your idea of God. Graduate it from being this external formless or this external form, and understand that that is everywhere, that God is in and through everything, that he is the consciousness that allows you to see, taste, touch, hear, smell everything and anything. And so this gives you a way of spiritualizing even the minutest detail of your life and having it point at this reality of divine love, this reality of a dance, as it were, with the divine. And it gives you the way of touching that perfect moment through your surrender, through your taking refuge in the moment, taking your refuge in God. He pervades the entire universe of the living and the non-living. So you can look at a rock and think of God, right? Does that make the rock an image? Does that make the rock an idol? Is that even the issue at that point? When you're looking at everything and thinking of God, what is there left not to worship? Everything becomes divine. Everything becomes pure. Everything becomes a reminder, a love letter, as it were, from your beloved divine. I think of him as the consciousness in conscious beings. Master, oh, well, stick to that ideal now. There is no need of tearing down and changing one's attitude. You will gradually come to realize that the consciousness in conscious beings is the consciousness of God. He alone is consciousness. Right? So this is another clue here, how to run our spiritual lives. Be okay with things as they are in this moment, with the understanding that the beloved is moving you, as it were, to this transcendence, to this knowledge, that you don't have to feel bad that you haven't gotten everything now. You don't have to feel bad that you haven't perfected your control of everything about yourself right now, right? You don't have to get anxious about your rate of growth or how little you perceive your change to be in your spiritual life. No, understand that in this moment it's perfect, because actually the changing things of this moment really have nothing to do with you. Why? Because the changing things in the moment are unreal, right? That's what Thakur says. The things that change are unreal. That which is unchanging alone is real. And thou art that, right? So in this moment, don't forget, things that are changing are not real. It's only the things that do not, the thing that does not change. And you say, well, gosh, what is it that doesn't change? It's that you that is looking out of your eyes, that you that is listening to your ears, that you that is, beating the heart, that you that is the observer. That is the part that never changes. That is consciousness itself. That is the Father, the unchanging according to the Psalms, the unchanging according to the ideas of Brahman, the absolute unchanging, absolute. So he says, you will gradually come to realize. So this is the promise. You're going to gradually come to realize the truth as it is. So don't be impatient. Enjoy God as she has presented herself to you now, the way he has presented himself to you now, the way that is always and will always be. So be in that and be fine with that. Understand that all these things you're worrying about will disappear of their own accord. Actually, as soon as you let go of them, because they're no longer in the present, they've already disappeared. You're the only one giving them life. You're the only one bringing them back into the present by not letting your mind let go of these things. And so to take refuge in God is to take refuge in the moment. To take refuge in the moment is to leave the past where it is, to leave the future where it is, which is nowhere, right? And that is how you will find your freedom. Let me ask you one thing. Do you feel attracted to money and treasures? No, sir. But I think of earning money in order to be free from anxiety, to be able to think of God without worry. Master, oh, well, that's perfectly natural, right? That's the proper view of money, just to allow it to be what it is. It's helpful for getting food. It's helpful for helping. It has its role in our life. It's not evil, right? There's nothing wrong with money. What is it that's unhelpful about money? It's the love of money that as that old saying goes, it's the love of money that is the root of all evil. Not money is the root of all evil. Money can do beautiful things, but it's the love of money, right? The craving of money, the thinking that there lies that happiness or fulfillment or meaning lie in money. If you think that way, you'll never have enough, just like all of the things of the senses. If you think there's anything outside of yourself that's going to make you happy, know now it is a delusion, and you will be running after that the day that you die, right? So understand this moment has all that you need for your realization. This moment has everything necessary for your contentment, your joy, your bliss as a human being. It may not be perfect for a body, and it may not be perfect for a mind. That's why it's important to know that you are not the body and you are not the mind. That will allow you to access an infinity of bliss and comfort and joy in existence, transcendent to body and mind. Oh, that's perfectly natural, the master says. Is it greed? I don't think so. Master, you are right. Otherwise, who will look after your children? What will become of them if you feel that you are not the doer? I have heard that one cannot attain knowledge as long as one has the consciousness of duty. Duty is like the scorching sun. Master, keep your present attitude. It will be different when the consciousness of duty drops away of itself. Right? So let the things that seem true to you be true. Don't stress. Don't put on pretenses, or don't try to see things in ways that you don't see them. Right? Accept the world from the place that you are in at this moment, but do it with the recollection of the presence of the divine, the presence of the beloved, and the knowledge that God is everywhere present and always perfect. If you carry those two ideas with you in the moment, you're going to be fine. You'll be able to navigate things, and your suffering will diminish over time, right? They remained silent for a few minutes. To enter the world after attaining partial knowledge, why, it is like dying in full consciousness, as in cholera. Master, oh, Ram. The idea in M's mind was that just as a cholera patient feels excruciating pain at the time of death because of retaining consciousness, so also a Jnani, or a knower of God, a realized soul, so also a Jnani with partial knowledge, okay, so not someone who's realized, someone who's practicing the path of Jnana, so also a Jnani with partial knowledge must feel extremely miserable leading the life of the world, which he knows to be illusory. People who are completely ignorant are like typhoid patients who remain unconscious at the time of death, and they don't feel the pain. Master, well, tell me, what does one attain through money? Jai Gopal Sen is such a wealthy man, but he complains that his children don't obey him. Is poverty the only painful thing in the world? There are 6 passions besides, then disease and grief, Master, and also name and fame, the desire to win people's recognition. Well, what do you think my attitude is? It is like that of a man just awakened from sleep. He becomes aware of himself. You are always united with God. Master, do you ever dream of me? Oh, yes, sir, many times. How? How did you dream of me? As giving you instruction? M remained silent. If you ever see me instructing you, then know that it is Sat Chit Ananda himself that does so. M related his dream experience to Sri Ramakrishna, who listened to them attentively. Master, that is very good. Don't reason anymore. You are followers of Shakti. Right? So that's very good. Don't reason anymore. What does that mean, to not reason anymore? It means don't go up here for your answers, right? Don't go up here to find your relationship with the divine. It's not a piece of information. It's not a philosophy. It's not a dogma. It's not a doctrine. God is realization. God is the experience of isness. He is this moment, right? I always like that distinction that God is not loving. God is love itself. That God does not exist. God is existence itself. That God is not wise or God is not intelligent. God is wisdom. God is intelligence itself. We are the verb, right? Even in the Christian scripture, you see that in John, the first chapter of the book of John. In the beginning was the Word, right? And the Word was God, and the Word was with God. So you have that very perplexing paradigm there. The Word is God, and the Word was with God. So the two are one, but they can be seen separate. God and his power can be seen different. Thakur says, milk and its whiteness, fire and its power to burn. And so this noun of God, which is in the silent chamber of the heart, where the absolute unchanging bubbles through a thumb-sized hole into this manifested world, where it becomes word. If you read further on in that first chapter of John, it says that all of creation, it says primarily the word has become flesh and dwelt among us, meaning the incarnation, right? But then he goes on to say that all of creation is a manifestation of that same word, of that same power, the vibration, which is what a word is, the vibration of sound. And so this power of God is where we reside. We are the manifestation, a small manifestation of God, right? We are a very weakly powered, let's say, a weakly powered incarnation of the divine isness, the divine presence. Whereas a Rama or a Krishna or a Buddha or a Jesus they've got big batteries. there's a lot of power in them. All right. So he says, that's very good. Don't reason anymore. Don't trip out up here. Stay here. Stay in the presence. Let the past be the past. Let the future be the future. Just be here now, as that famous book says. All right, Wednesday, October 10th, 1883. Adar had invited the master to come to his house on the occasion of Durga Puja. It was the third day of the worship of the Divine Mother. When Sri Ramakrishna arrived at Adar's house, he found Adar's friend, Sharada, Balaram's father, and Adar's neighbors and relatives waiting for him. The master went into the worship hall to see the evening worship. When it was over, he remained standing there in an abstracted mood and sang in the praise of the Divine Mother. And this is the song he's singing. Out of my deep affliction, rescue me, O Redeemer. Terrified by the threats of the King of Death am I. Left to myself, I shall perish soon. Save me. Oh, save me now, I pray. Mother of all the worlds, you, the support of mankind. You, the bewitcher of all, the mother of all that has life. Vrindavan's charming Radha are you. Dearest playmate of Braja's beloved, blissful comrade of Krishna, wellspring of Krishna's Leela, Krishna's play. Child of Himalaya, best of the gopis, beloved of Govinda, sacred Ganga, giver of freedom, of moksha. Shakti, the universe sings your praise. You are the spouse of Shiva, the ever-blessed, the all. Sometimes you take form and sometimes you are absolute. Eternal beloved of Mahadeva, who can fathom your infinite glories? There's some beautiful things in here for taking on as a way of seeing the whole world. As he talks about to Mother, that you are a child of the Himalayas, best of the gopis. The gopis were the milkmaids that were part of Krishna's play. That they loved him so much, and so she's the best the very best of the milkmaids that danced with Krishna in his play. The sacred Ganga, the giver of moksha, of liberation, right? So the sacred Ganga, the giver of liberation. It's interesting that the religions all seem to have a river for them, for themselves, that is holy. You know, you've got the Jordan for the Christians and Ganga. And now I'm going to have to go and find out all the other rivers now that I've said that. But nonetheless, but it's a way of seeing the presence of God in everything. You know, Thakur said that's one of the great ways of growing is to associate things that you see with the divine. You know, Thakur saw that English boy standing in Central Park in Calcutta with it bent in three places, meaning, you know, with his arm bent and his hips cocked and his one leg bent over the other, like Krishna, that famous posture of Krishna playing the flute. And so Ramakrishna saw this young English boy standing that way and immediately went into ecstasy, went into bhava by that sight. You know, he mentions an old man that realized the wood of his cane was the same wood that Krishna's flute was made out of. And that brought him to tears, thinking of God. And so to always understand that everything that you see is pointing at the beloved, pointing at the divine, that's the way to survive this world. You know, to understand that all experience, all objects, all thoughts, all desires are actually pointing at something. Nothing is as it seems. All of them are pointers. And if you look closely at them and suss them out through your discernment, which is a big part of our practice, you come to understand that all of your desires are actually desires for God. They're all desires for divine attributes that already belong to you. You know, your immortality, your unity, your confidence, your power, your strength, your love, your wisdom, that all of your desires are just objectifications of that which is already yours in the moment. But by stepping out of the silence of the moment and into the changing mind, you have lost sight. You can't hear the stillness when you're in the disco. Right? So when you move into the mind, all of that noise, all of that concern, all of that array of thinking and thoughts coming from all directions, from the senses, from memories, and then the stuff that mixture has made in the mind itself, from that perspective, you can't experience God. You can't see the sacred in the moment because that sacredness is sitting here absolutely silent and still, needing nothing, changing nothing, simply in the bliss of its own self. And so to experience that, you have to come out of that mind, come out of that noise, and return to that presence, to the awareness of that presence, to awareness of awareness, as the Gyanis like to say. The master went to Adar's drawing room on the second floor and took a seat, surrounded by the guests. Still in a mood of divine fervor, he said, "Gentlemen, I have eaten. Now, go and enjoy the feast." Was the master hinting that the Divine Mother had partaken of Adar's offering? Did he identify himself with the Divine Mother and therefore say, "I have eaten"? Then, addressing the Divine Mother, he continued, "Shall I eat, O Mother, or will you eat? O Mother, the very embodiment of the wine of divine bliss." Did the master look on himself as one with the Divine Mother? Had the Mother incarnated herself as the Son to instruct mankind in the ways of God? Was this why the Master said, "I have eaten"? In that state of divine ecstasy, Sri Ramakrishna saw the 6 centers in his body and the Divine Mother dwelling in them. He sang a song to that effect. Again, he sang, "My mind, it's overwhelmed with wonder, pondering the Mother's mystery. Her very name removes the fear of Kala, death himself. Beneath her feet lies Mahakala. Why should her hue be Kala, black? Many the forms of black, but she appears astoundingly black. When contemplated in the heart, she lights the lotus that blossoms there. Her form is black, and she is named Kali, the Black One, blacker than black. Is she? Beholding her, man is bewitched forevermore, for no other form can he enjoy. In wonderment asks Ram Prasad, where dwells this woman so amazing? At her mere name, his mind becomes at once absorbed in her, though he has never yet beheld her. The fear of the devotees flies away if they but seek shelter at the feet of the Divine Mother. Was that why the Master sang the following song? I have surrendered my soul at the fearless feet of the Mother. Am I afraid of death anymore? Unto the tuft of hair on my head is tied the almighty mantra, Mother Kali's name. My body I have sold in the marketplace of the world, and with it I bought Sri Durga's name. Deep within my heart I have planted the name of Kali, the wish-fulfilling tree of heaven. When Yama, king of death, appears, to him I shall open my heart and show it growing there. I have cast out from me my 6 unflagging foes. Right. The 6 passions. Ready am I to sail life's sea, crying to Durga, victory. You know, we see this kind of language mirrored in St. Paul in the New Testament, where he says, it's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. Right. And basically what we're talking about and what Ramakrishna is alluding to here is the death of the ego, the self that is composed of just a small subset of experience and memory. This self that produces desire and is always insecure because it's incomplete. Its only vision of God is seeing God in small pieces. Why? Because it sees God, the unity, which is what we're actually looking at, the singularity, which is what we're actually experiencing, gets broken into 5 pieces immediately before it gets to our mind. It gets broken into our 5 senses, right? And so you get God broken into 5 senses. Now, are there more senses we don't have? Most likely. Most likely. So we're working with one hand and 4 fingers of the other hand tied behind our back. And the whole process of life, of thinking, for the worldly man, is trying to reassemble this unity in mind. That's what we call learning. When you take all of these disparate objects that come to us through the senses and you place them in the mind, learning is drawing the lines of relationship between them. And what the process does, drawing lines of relationship between all the different objects of thought that exist in our mind, is the mind's attempt at reconstructing the unity that it intuitively knows exists. That unity, that perfect love, all of the ideals, we brought into this world with us, because this world can't show us anything ideal. This world cannot show us anything perfect, right? And so anything that we deem perfect, any idea that we have, that idea we had to bring into this world with us, because this world cannot give you the idea of perfection. It does not exist here. The world cannot give you the idea of an unconditioned love, because it does not exist here. The world cannot give you the idea of immortality, because immortality does not exist here. The world cannot give you the idea of infinity, because infinity does not exist here. And so all of these things, this is faith, knowing the things that you brought with you by your nature into this world. It's you that brought the idea of perfection, you that brought the idea of unconditioned love, you, the idea that brought pure wisdom, immortality, infinity. You brought these things with you. And your faith in knowing them to be true, even though it's impossible for the senses to demonstrate them to you, and impossible for the mind to get all of the pieces aligned so that you can experience a perfection, that is faith. This inner intuitive knowing of these things that are impossible in the manifested world, but somehow we know them, we feel them, we intuit them within, right? And so I don't know where I started with that whole thing out of this song, but it's just this idea that it's through this refuge in God in the moment, this refuge in the divine name, which is presence, right? The divine name and God's presence are inseparable. The name and the form cannot be separated. So when you say the name of God within, God is present there. And that's one of the powers of the mantra, of mantra meditation, is every time the name of God is repeated in your mantra, the presence of God is indicated. Ramakrishna even goes so far as to say that God and his name are not different. They are the same. And so as you speak that name to become aware of the presence, this is how we take refuge in God, in the present moment, because that draws us out of mind, that draws us out of memory, out of noise, and delivers us to the silence, to the pregnant silence, not the silence of absence, but the silence which contains all sounds. Not the space that is empty, but the space that allows all manifestations. This is the nature of the silent self. This is the nature of the shrine in the heart. He goes on, he says, Sharada was stricken with grief on account of his son's death. So Adar had taken him to Dakshineshwar to visit the master. Sharada, who was a devotee of Sri Chaitanya, Sri Ramakrishna looked at him and was inspired with the ideal of Gauranga. He sang, "Why has my body turned so golden? It is not time for this to be. Many the ages that must pass before as Gauranga I appear. Here in the age of Dwapara, my sport is not yet at an end. How strange this transformation is. The peacock glistens all of gold, and golden too the cuckoo gleams. Everything around me here has turned to gold. Naught else appears but gold, whichever way I look. What can it mean, this miracle, that everything I see is gold? Ah, I can guess its meaning now. Radha has come to Mathura, and that is why my skin is gold. For she is like the Brahmara. According to Hindu legend, the cockroach, by intently meditating upon the Brahmara, becomes transformed into the latter. And so, because of her constant thinking of Krishna, Radha and Krishna are united. And so has given me her hue, right? It's really this allusion to the process of spiritual practice. By this constant recollection of the divine, we become divine. By being in the constant presence of pure love, we become loving. By living in the presence of pure mercy, we become merciful. By living in the presence of pure contentment, we become desireless. And we find this all through the name of God, all through the constant recollection of this moment now. Be here now. This is the presence. This is the divine. I can guess its meaning now. Radha has come to Mathura, and that is why my skin is gold. For she is like the Brahmara, and so has given me her hue. Dark blue my body was, but now, yet in the twinkling of an eye, it turned to gold. Have I become Radha by contemplating her? I cannot imagine where I am, in Mathura or Navadvip. But how could this have come to pass? Not yet is Balarama born as Nitai, nor has Narada become Shrivas, nor Yashoda as Mother Sachi yet returned. Then why should I, among them all, alone assume a golden face? Not yet is Father Nanda born as Jagannath. Then why should I be thus transmuted into gold? Perhaps because in Mathura, sweet Radha has appeared. My skin has borrowed Gauranga's golden hue. This is, he's saying, everything is out of time. There should be a sequence for things, for me to manifest in this way, to understand things in this way, to see things in this way. But some magic has happened, that I have been transformed, that I have found, that I have touched this reality, I've touched this knowledge out of time, and yet here it is. It's happened. And has it happened because Radha, Shakti, has united with the silent, entering into the shrine of the heart, finding that your true nature, coming to realization, the marriage of Radha and Krishna. the reunification of Shakti with Shiva, where the two, the oneness of the two, that within the shrine of the heart is, as it were, that unchanging absolute. And in the mind that has the notions of me and mine in it, the manifested world has created its existence. And within you, through that mantra, through that practice, through that drawing near to the silent moment, the two become one. You see that the bricks of the stairs and the bricks of the roof are the same. All right. Sri Ramakrishna sang again, still overpowered with the ideal of Gauranga. Surely Gauranga is lost in a state of blissful ecstasy. In an exuberance of joy, he laughs and weeps and dances and sings. He takes a wood for Vrindavan, the Ganges for the blue Jamuna. Loudly he sobs and weeps, yet though he is all gold without, he is all black within, black with the blackness of Krishna. Yeah, so in talking about being in this state of ecstasy, this state of wonder, where everything is seen as holy. He sees the woods and he assumes he's in the holy city of Vrindavan, the Ganges for the blue Jamuna. Everything becomes, you see that this world is a collection of symbols, right? In a weird way, we've talked about that in the Advaita class. When you come to realize that you actually have no evidence of an external world, right? When you realize that this world exists within mind only, and that having never seen a light, because that light never actually gets through your eyes to a brain, that light stops at the back of the eye socket and gets interpreted into signals, neurobio symbols or signals that then get transmitted to a particular space of the brain. And in there, the brain takes those signals and creates a symbol for light. And so what you're actually looking at this moment is not a light. What you're looking at this moment is your brain's symbol for light that it has composed out of the information, out of the signals that it's gotten from the optic nerve. And it's the same way for everything. You have never heard anything directly. You've never seen anything, tasted anything, touched anything directly, which is why things of this world can't be fulfilling, because they're going through an interface that never really touches us, that we don't have a connection with. And so this world that you live in is a world of symbol, right? A world of symbols, and your ego interprets them all as distinct and separate from one another. And yet the final truth, the final unification, the final unity is when you realize that all of those symbols of your mind were describing a singularity, were representing a singularity, which is the divinity, the absolute unchanging, the one without a second. And at that point, all the symbols collapse. The separate experiencer disappears or merges and becomes the entirety, which is to say egoism dies. The sense of separateness from everything and everyone, and most importantly, the divine, vanishes. And because there's one without a second, experience vanishes, hunger vanishes, fullness vanishes. Everything finds its perfection. And so in the stage, he's sort of alluding to that in this song, that inside, outside, everything is gold. Everything is this has its value because of the blackness of Krishna within, that the reflection of the world in the mind turned out to be a reflection of God in the heart. And that's realization. The master continued to sing, assuming the attitude of a woman devotee infatuated with love for Gauranga. Why do my neighbors raise such a scandal? Why do they cast aspirations upon me simply because of Gauranga? How can they understand my feelings? How can I ever explain? Can I ever explain at all? Alas, to whom shall I explain it? Ah, but they make me die of shame. Once on a time, at the house of Srivas, Gora was loudly singing the kirtan, when on the ground of the courtyard Falling, he rolled in an ecstasy. I, who was standing near him, seeing him where he lay entranced, was suddenly lost to the outward sense, until the wife of Srivas revived me. Another day, in the Bhakta's procession, Gora was sweetly singing the kirtan, clasping the outcasts to him. He softened the unbelievers' hearts. Through, through Nadia's marketplace, he chanted Lord Hari's holy name. I followed the throng, and from close by caught a glimpse of his golden feet. Once by the Ganges bank he stood, his body bright as the sun and moon, charming all with his beauty. I too had come to fetch some water, and as I looked from one side, my water jar slipped and fell to the ground. My sister-in-law, the gossip, saw me, and now she is spreading it everywhere. Balaram's father was a Vaishnava, and hence the master also sang of the divine love of the gopis for their beloved Krishna. I have not found my Krishna, O friend. How cheerless my home without him. Ah, if Krishna could only be the hair upon my head, carefully I should braid it then, and deck it with bakul flowers. Carefully I should fashion the braids out of my Krishna hair. Krishna is black, and black is my hair. Black would be one with black. Ah, if Krishna could only be the ring I wear in my nose. Always from my nose he would hang, and my two lips could touch him. But it can never be, alas, why should I idly dream? Why should Krishna care at all to be the ring in my nose? Ah, if Krishna could only be the bracelet on my arms, always he would cling to my wrists, and proudly I would walk, shaking my bracelets to make them sound, shaking my arms to show them. Down the king's highway I should walk, wearing my Krishna bracelets. Yeah. Balaram's father was a wealthy man with estates in different parts of Orissa. An orthodox member of the Vaishnava sect, he had built temples and arranged for the distribution of food to the pilgrims at various holy places. He had been spending the last years of his life in Vrindavan. The Vaishnavas, for the most part, are bigoted in their religious views. Some of them harbor malicious feelings toward the followers of the Tantra and the Vedanta. But Sri Ramakrishna never encouraged such a narrow outlook. According to his teachings, through earnestness and yearning, all lovers of God will ultimately reach the same goal. The master began the conversation in order to broaden the religious views of Balaram's father. So even then, even in India, in that country, there's this idea about my path is the right path. You know, the Vaishnavas not liking the Vedantins, and you know, somebody doesn't like the Muslims, and somebody doesn't like the Sufis, and someone doesn't like the fundamentalist Christians, and someone doesn't like the Catholics. You know, this is not a religion particular problem. This is an ego particular problem. And anytime you mix ego with religion, you better run, because it's going to explode. Ego and religion, boundaries, separateness are not the signs of pure love or of religion. Unity, oneness, strength, encouragement, forgiveness, compassion, these are the signs of religion. These are the signs of the presence of the beloved. Anytime there's division and separateness, you can know that ego is responsible in there. So Ramakrishna is about to start this conversation because Balaram's father is a Vaishnava. He's got very bigoted views, very narrow views. My path alone is right. The master to M. Once I thought, why should I be one-sided? Therefore, I was initiated into Vaishnavism in Vrindavan and took the garb of a Vaishnava monk, right? So he became this fundamentalist Hindu, as it were. I spent 3 days practicing the Vaishnava discipline. Again, at Dakshineshwar, I was initiated into the mystery of Rama worship. I painted my forehead with a long mark and put on a string with a diamond around my neck, but after a few days, I gave them up. A certain man had a tub. People would come to him to have their clothes dyed. The tub contained a solution of dye. Whatever color a man wanted for his cloth, he would get by dipping the cloth in the tub. One man in line was amazed to see this and said to the dyer, "Please, give me the dye that you have in your tub." Was the master hinting that people professing different religions would come to him and have their spiritual consciousness awakened according to their own ideals? This notion so the scenarios, there's the long line of people, all of them have a white cloth that they want to get dyed, and they go to this dyer who has this tub of dye, and the dyer asks them, "What color do you want?" And he says, "Oh, I want blue." And so the dyer takes it, pushes it into the tub, pulls it out, and gives him his blue cloth, and he goes on his way. And the next guy comes, I want the green. So he takes it, sticks it in the same tub, and pulls it out green, and sends him on his way. And so this man at the back of the line is kind of, what in the world is going on? That's crazy. Everybody's getting their color out of this same bin, this same tub. And so when it's his turn, the dyer asks him, "Oh, what color do you want it?" And he says, "Oh, I want the color that's in the tub. I want the original color." Right. And so what this is, that tub is mind. Right. And the things that you expose, or your cloth is your mind, and the tub is this experience of being, and what you expose yourself to, that is the color your mind becomes. Right. You take on the color of your experience. You take on the color of your desires. You take on the color of your attachments, your aversions. They become the color that you are. They become your personality. They become your ego self, right? And to say, I want the color of what the tub is, that is to say, I want enlightenment. That is to say, I want to be the highest ideal. I want to be that which has all attributes. I want that to be what has no attributes, since that would be the same thing. So it's this wanting of transcendence, this wanting, this asking for unity, this asking for one without a second. And so it's one of the possible ways of looking at that idea there. And so understand that all of us are products of what we've exposed ourselves to. And so be aware of what you're exposing yourself to. Be aware of what you're putting in your mind, what you're putting in your body, what you're putting in your eyes and your ears. Be aware, because you become those things. Master, to Balaram's father, don't read books anymore, but you may read books on devotion, such as the life of Chaitanya. The whole thing is to love God and to taste his sweetness. He is sweetness, and the devotee is its enjoyer. The devotee drinks the bliss of God. Further, God is the lotus, and the devotee is the bee. The devotee sips the honey of the lotus. As a devotee cannot live without God, so also God cannot live without his devotees. Then the devotee becomes the sweetness, and God becomes the enjoyer. The devotee becomes the lotus, and God the bee. It is the Godhead that has become these two in order to enjoy its own bliss. That is the significance of the episode of Radha and Krishna. At the beginning of spiritual life, the devotee should observe such rites as pilgrimage, putting on a string of beads around his neck, and so forth. But outward ceremonies gradually drop off as he attains the goal, the vision of God. Then his only activity is the repetition of God's name and the contemplation and meditation on him. The pennies equivalent to 16 rupees make a great heap, but 16 silver coins do not look like such a big amount. Again, the quantity becomes much smaller when you change the 16 rupees into one gold muhar. And if you change the gold into a tiny piece of diamond, people hardly notice it. Orthodox Vaishnavas insist on the outer insignia of religion. They criticize any devotee who does not wear these marks. Was that why the master had said that after the vision of God, a devotee becomes indifferent to outer marks, giving up formal worship when the goal of spiritual life is attained. Indeed, the end of religion is love. Fear is at the beginning. You fear it at the beginning because you have not yet learned of an unconditioned love. You have not yet known an unconditioned grace. You have not yet touched a self that's separate from body and mind. You've not found the shrine in your heart and the silent peace that sits there. And so in the beginning, yes, churches are important, practices are important, scriptures, dogmas, and creeds are all important in their time. But we're meant to outgrow all of them. That's what Vivekananda says, blessed is the man born in a church, but what a curse to die in one. We're meant to transcend all of that scaffolding of religion is not the ideal. When this judging of people, don't hang out with worldly people, that's not the ideal of religion. That's the beginning. Ramakrishna says in the beginning you have to put a fence around the tree to protect it from everything. But once that tree gets its root, once it grows into a tree, you can tie an elephant to it and it won't pull it out of the ground, you see. But we've taken the scaffolding of religion and we've made that the important thing. We've taken all of these things that were meant to just be training wheels for us, and we've permanently attached them to ourselves. And so we've lost the beauty of religion. We've lost the love of religion. We've lost the mercy and the compassion for one another because we've lost our religion. And so what does he say? Go inside, go into the heart, and just enjoy God. Go into your shrine of the heart. Just enjoy that love. Sit there and imagine what an unconditioned love would look like. What does it require? What does it mean to not require? How do you gain confidence in such a love? So go inside yourself. Enjoy this vat of dye in the color that it is, and not the color that your mind is demanding. Go inside and find out who you are when nothing else is telling you, when not a sound is being uttered. Who are you? And that's the presence. That's the maturity of spiritual life. That's freedom.